was a perfect desert evening in El Sozal, a quiet border town split between two countries and one heartbeat away from nowhere. The air was thick with the scent of roasted corn, spilled beer, and the distant hum of cicadas. The Martinez wedding was in full swing. Laughter echoed through the ranch. Candles flickered in the warm breeze, and the mariachi band, Los Sombreros del Sol, played with fire in their souls. They were local legends. 7 men who could turn grief into music. Every guest danced under the open sky, their boots kicking up dust that shimmered in the lights strung across the courtyard. For a moment, it felt like nothing bad could ever happen here. Just before midnight, as the newlyweds prepared for their final dance, a strange current passed through the crowd. The power flickered once, twice, then dimmed to a dull, amber glow. Some thought it was the generator acting up, but the band kept playing, their trumpets echoing across the dry fields. Then came a low hum, deep and unnatural, vibrating through the ground like something alive beneath their feet. The lead singer looked up, confused. One by one, the instruments faltered, the melody fell apart, and a soundless stillness swallowed the music whole. When the lights fully died, someone screamed. When they came back on, the band was gone. Their van, which had been parked just behind the reception tent, had vanished too. The only thing left were a few scattered sheet music pages, fluttering across the dirt like leaves. Guests searched the ranch, shouting into the dark fields, but there were no tire tracks, no footprints, nothing. The bride's father, desperate, drove into the desert with a flashlight, following the faint echo of a trumpet that seemed to drift in and out of the wind. By dawn, police were called, and what they found only deepened the terror. A long, shallow trail in the sand, leading nowhere, and a single silver button from a mariachi jacket pressed deep into the soil. Within days, the story spread through every local news outlet. Mariachi band disappears during border wedding. Police combed the desert with helicopters, dogs, and heat sensors, but nothing turned up. No tire imprints, no torn clothing, not even a dropped instrument. It was as if the men had walked off the edge of the world. The families of Los Sombreros del Sol gathered daily at the police station, clutching photos and offering prayers. The lead investigator, a veteran sheriff named Eddie Parnell, told reporters he'd seen cartel work before, but admitted this wasn't that. The case file grew thicker by the week. Phone records, witness statements, strange technical reports. And yet, not a single piece fit together. The desert had swallowed them whole, and everyone stopped asking why. But some things couldn't be explained away. When the sheriff's team collected the band's equipment, they noticed every microphone was still powered on. Batteries drained halfway, recording static. When forensic analysts played back the tapes, they expected laughter, maybe music. What they heard instead sent 2 of them home sick. It started as faint echoes, metallic and hollow, like voices singing from inside a cave. The language was unrecognizable, low and rhythmic, like a chant that built and broke in unnatural patterns. One technician claimed he heard his own name whispered through the noise. Another swore he heard children crying. Officially, the recordings were labeled inconclusive. Unofficially, the sheriff told his men never to play them again. By 2005, the investigation had gone cold. Reporters moved on to fresher tragedies, and the border towns went quiet again. The families still gathered every anniversary at the ranch where it all began, lighting candles, setting out the band's photos, and praying beneath the same desert stars. Rumors began to twist the story that the band had been hired by the wrong people, that they'd stumbled onto something buried out there in the sand. A local priest even claimed the ground near the wedding site was spiritually tainted, but no one listened. Eventually, the Los Sombreros del Sol case was boxed up, marked UNSOL-VD, and stored deep in a county evidence room. Dust settled, memories faded, and the world forgot about the night the music stopped. It wasn't until early 2009 that the story surfaced again. By accident, a Homeland Security task force was investigating a suspected smuggling route near Nogales, Arizona, a stretch of desert riddled with forgotten mines and collapsed service tunnels from the 1940s. During a routine scan, ground-penetrating radar caught something odd. A long, perfectly cut shaft descending 40 feet beneath an abandoned storage shed. At first, agents thought they'd stumbled onto another cartel passage, but as they descended, the air grew cold and metallic, almost electric. Their flashlights cut through thick dust, illuminating walls lined with old bricks, and deeper in, the faint shimmer of something painted white. The further they went, the stronger a smell of rust and oil became. And underneath it, something faintly sweet, like decayed wood soaked in perfume. About halfway through the tunnel, the team found the first real clue: an old guitar string, stretched taut between two support beams, as if placed there deliberately. A few steps later, they came upon a weather-beaten wooden crate filled with rotted clothing, some embroidered with gold thread and small red sequins. The lead investigator, Agent Rebecca Cole, realized they weren't just in a smuggling route. They were in something much older. Her flashlight caught the glint of a small metal plate buried under the dirt. She brushed it clean and froze. It read, "Los Sombreros del Sol, property of Juan Esteban," the same name from the Martinez wedding in 2003. The team went silent. For the first time in 6 years, there was proof the band had been real, and maybe still down there. At the end of the tunnel, they found it. A rusted white Chevrolet van, wedged sideways against the dirt wall, as if it had crashed trying to turn around. Its wheels were still pointed toward the exit, but the path behind it had collapsed. The paint had flaked off, yet the faded lettering was unmistakable. Los Sombreros del Sol. The doors were sealed shut with layers of hardened soil, like time itself had entombed it. When the agents forced them open, a gust of stale air escaped, heavy, sour, almost humid despite the dry earth. Inside, 7 shapes sat slumped in perfect formation, skeletal, dressed in what was left of black charro suits. Trumpets, guitars, and violins lay fused to bone, as if melted together by heat or pressure. Agent Cole covered her mouth as her radio crackled with static, but beneath the static, faintly, came a single note from a trumpet, echoing through a tunnel no one had entered in years. Inside the van, wedged between the driver's seat and the console, Agent Cole found something wrapped in a strip of decayed leather, a cassette tape. The label was handwritten in faded black ink, Última Canción. The last song. The tape had survived surprisingly well, though its casing was warped and sticky with time. When the agents sent it to the forensics lab in Tucson, technicians had to bake it gently in a low-temperature oven just to keep it from falling apart. The assumption was that it might contain one of the band's final recordings, maybe practice sessions or song drafts, but the sound that came out of those old speakers had nothing to do with music. The room filled with static at first, a sharp, hissing wave of distortion that made everyone wince. Then, underneath it, came a man's voice, laughing, off-key singing, the start of what might have been a song, until something else joined in. At first, it sounded like feedback, a low hum echoing behind the melody. But it began to take shape, syncing perfectly with the rhythm, almost mimicking the music. The laughter stopped. The singer's tone shifted, his breathing became shallow, and the guitar chords stumbled. Someone in the background shouted something in Spanish. "No están solos!" They're not alone. The sound grew louder, the hum turning into a chorus of deep, dissonant voices, chanting words that didn't match any known language. The recording then cut sharply, as if someone had slammed the tape deck off, only to resume seconds later with screaming. Short, muffled, and close to the microphone, the forensic report described vocal anomalies inconsistent with human resonance. But the most unsettling part wasn't the screaming. It was what came after. In the final minute of the tape, the noise softened into what could only be described as breathing. Long, deliberate inhales and exhales. But not from one person. It sounded like 7. Then, a faint metallic scraping echoed through the background, followed by a whisper. Analysts tried isolating the voice, but every time they played it back, it sounded slightly different, sometimes male, sometimes female, always distorted, always near. The final words, however, were clear. A deep, guttural tone that vibrated through the playback room, not buried, still playing. Every agent in the lab froze. When they tried to rewind the tape for analysis, the reel jammed and snapped clean in half. The sound engineer swore. Just before the lights flickered and the entire room filled with that same low hum. The one from the tape. In the months following the tunnel discovery, strange reports began circulating among Border Patrol agents and night shift workers near Nogales. Men and women who spent long hours in the desert claimed to hear faint trumpets drifting through the wind, playing melodies that seemed familiar, though no one could place them. One officer, stationed near the sealed tunnel entrance, radioed in saying he'd heard a full band warming up beneath the ground. When backup arrived, there was nothing, no instruments, no wind, not even animal movement, just silence so heavy it pressed on the chest. The agent resigned 2 weeks later and refused to return to night duty. Locals whispered that the music had come back, that Los Sombreros del Sol were still performing somewhere beneath the desert floor. Soon after, residents in nearby towns began claiming to pick up strange radio signals on old AM frequencies, bursts of mariachi music tangled in static, always playing the same short tune before cutting to dead air. Some recorded the transmissions, but when they played them back, the song was gone, replaced with distorted whispers or the sound of breathing. A Tucson DJ swore he captured one of these signals during a late-night broadcast. He played it live on air. 30 seconds of a haunting melody, ending with what sounded like a single trumpet note bending out of tune. Listeners flooded the station with calls, saying their radios had turned on by themselves during the segment. One caller even claimed to recognize her uncle's voice, one of the missing band members. By 2018, the legend had taken on a life of its own. People called it La Canción Maldita, the cursed song. Urban explorers sneaked into the old smuggling tunnels at night, hoping to hear the music for themselves. Some came back shaken, describing echoes that matched their footsteps, or whispers that repeated what they said seconds later. Others never came back at all, Sheriff Parnell, long retired, once told a local newspaper that he still heard the song sometimes, soft, distant, carried on the wind outside his ranch. "They never left," he said quietly. "They just found a different stage." And even now, when the desert wind howls across the border, people swear you can still hear them. The lost band of Los Sombreros del Sol, playing one last song for an audience buried in the dark. Weeks later, the tunnel was sealed for good. Concrete poured over the walls, evidence locked away, and officials insisted the case was closed. But some things don't stay buried. On a moonless night that summer, a Border Patrol drone captured something moving near the site. Faint heat signatures shaped like 7 figures, standing in a perfect semicircle. When agents arrived, the ground was cold, but a single trumpet lay half, buried in the sand, gleaming under the floodlights. Its brass was spotless, almost new. The instrument was taken into evidence, though no one could explain how it ended up there. When one technician tested it, he swore the metal vibrated on its own, as if humming softly from within. The recording he made that night lasted exactly 43 seconds before cutting to silence. On playback, the waveform showed no noise at all, except for a single spike right at the end. When enhanced, it wasn't static, it was a note, a long, clear trumpet note. And beneath it, a voice whispered, the same phrase heard on the tape from the van, "Not buried, still playing." And since then, every year on the anniversary of the wedding, that same sound returns, faint, distant, carried by the desert wind like an unfinished song that refuses to die.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.